You've heard us talk about the ultimate fantasy league for football before, but now professional fantasy sports is back for baseball. And joining us to talk about that as well as the Major League Baseball playoffs that start tonight is a man who knows some of these teams very well. It is Ian Kinsler joining us right now on the phone line to talk more baseball right here on 97.3 ESPN. Ian, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's playoff baseball time, so yeah, it's always an exciting time.
Absolutely. Before we get to the actual game, let's talk about this. This is absolutely wild. I mean, professional fantasy sports. It mimics all MLB 30 teams, 26-man rosters, 40-man list. You know, all the options that a real manager would have to go through in a game is all a part of this professional fantasy sports league. So I want to ask, what got you involved with this?
Well, I got a call from a teammate of mine when I was going to play in the Olympics for Team Israel. A teammate of mine was involved in this, and he started talking to me about that, or about this at that time, and it sounded super interesting to me. It was a lot of information at the time, and I wasn't really grasping it or honestly really paying attention. And then after the Olympics finished, I got another call from Matt, and we were able to kind of sit down and discuss this, this ultimate fantasy league baseball thing. And like you said, it's like as close to the real thing as you can get. You said it's kind of like managing a team. It's also like being a general manager of a team, being the scouts, managing the minor league systems, and then also managing like your everyday lineup. So there's just like so much that goes into it. And that's really what interests me in it is, it's not just a shell of regular fantasy sports. You can really like dive into this, get to know the game a little bit better. If you don't want to just be the regular, common fan that follows baseball, or any sport, that they're doing. They do hockey, they do football. This is where it's at. You can really dive into the logistics and just everything that goes into running a professional team. It's pretty cool. It's pretty intense, and that's what kind of drew me to it.
Now, one of the interesting things about this as well is the fact that athlete involvement is where you create your NFT and you get rewarded financially through the fantasy play as well as the NFT revenue. So, what does this mean for athletes? This is a completely different opportunity for basically revenue generation.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think we're going to really break the bank on this thing, but it's cool to see your own NFT and to be involved. I guess you can say realistically, where they actually take your stats and what you're doing on a daily basis. And I think most fantasy sports do that, but now these teams, there's only 30 teams, and now they can buy these NFTs. They can have these players on their team, and then they're able to trade them or basically own these NFTs and control them how they like. So that's a really cool bonus to that. And I think that, it allows the players to feel like they're a little bit more involved, especially the guys that, aren't playing baseball every day now, guys that have retired and moved on. And it's cool to see that you can still be involved in like a fantasy sports scenario.
And for anyone interested, whether you are yourself a former player, you're a potential franchise owner, you want to be a scout, you want to be a GM, you can send an email to info@uflb@gmail.com. That's info@uflb@gmail.com. Ian, let's get to some of the baseball on the field, because tonight's game involves some people that you're very familiar with. You won the World Series with the Red Sox, and you look at this team tonight. They're going against the Yankees, one of the biggest rivalries in sports, and it's win or go home. It feels like it's the most baseball thing ever to have Yankees Red Sox in a win or go home scenario.
Yeah, it is for sure. Before I played for the Red Sox, and I was on, around the league playing for other teams, I was always envious of the Red Sox Yankees because they were always on TV. They're always prime time. They're always ESPN, MLB Network, Fox Sports. They always showcase Yankees versus Red Sox, and I really didn't understand that. I was like, man, why can't you put the Tigers on, or why can't you put the Rangers on, or or whoever, the Padres, like, why can't we be in prime time? This is nonsense. Red Sox and Yankees get all the pub. And then when I was able to be traded to the Red Sox and the second series that I played in Fenway was against the Yankees, I completely understood, the intensity, the fan experience, it's pure baseball. The only way that I can describe playing, in a series game or in like a winner take all type game like this, when it's Yankees Red Sox, is like a European soccer, like a Premier League soccer match. It's intense. Everyone's paying attention to every pitch, and it's like you said, it's what baseball is made of, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch tonight for sure.
When you think about this rivalry, like you said, you played in Texas, you played in Detroit, you played other places where you had success. What was the difference for you being on a winning team with the Red Sox compared to those Rangers teams that you were on or the Tigers teams that you were on?
Well, the Rangers teams were very similar. We went back-to-back World Series in 10 and 11. Lost both of them, unfortunately. Played in one of the best World Series ever in 2011 when the Cardinals beat us. But those teams were very similar to that Red Sox team that won in 2018. And it was just a magical season. I came in halfway through, and for me, I just didn't want to get in anyone's way. I didn't want to mess up the flow that was going on and the chemistry that they had. I just wanted to fit in and slide in and fit in and continue to get clutch 2-out base hits. It seemed like every time there's an RBI situation with 2 outs, we were driving runners in, and whenever we made an error defensively, someone always seemed to pick up the slack offensively. And it was just one of those magical seasons. And that's what it takes. And the crazy part about it was that team did that, perform that way through the playoffs and all the way through the World Series. And it was an incredible season to be a part of. And I was definitely grateful and will always be grateful to be a part of that.
4-time MLB All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove winner Ian Kinsler joining us right now on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks to the Ultimate Fantasy Baseball League, professional fantasy sports unlike anything you've ever seen. Ian, when you think about as well, you had this long career, but as someone who played baseball for as long as you did, how do you feel about the one and done wild card? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Because some people say, hey, baseball is about a series, right? And other people say this is exciting that it's a one and done.
I mean, there shouldn't be 2 wild card teams to begin with. So you're adding another team. I think that team should be grateful that they're getting a crack at it. I think that ever since I actually played in the very first wild card game against the Baltimore Orioles in Texas in 2012, and we lost that game. But I think that it's great for the game. I think that it just adds a ton of excitement. I think viewership, the ratings and everything go way up for these one game playoff scenarios. In a season like this where you have the Cardinals that are red hot playing against a team that won 105 games and the Dodgers or whatever, they won 106 games. Anything can happen in that one game. And I think people are really drawn to that. And then you add the Red Sox and Yankees to the mix and you got a 1-game playoff. I think that it's great for baseball. I think that it adds to the excitement. And then, obviously they get to move on and play in a series of games. So, when there was no wild card game, the wild card team went directly to a series. There's only one wild card team. They went directly to a series, and they had an opportunity to, set their rotation and be just like any other, playoff team that won their division. So winning the wild card, there was really no disadvantage. So I think this also gives those wild card teams that make it through tonight and tomorrow night a little bit of a disadvantage going into a 5-game series because they're trying to do everything they can to win this one game. So I think it sets them behind the 8 ball a little bit, and I think that's the way it should be. When you're a wild card team, I think it's right that you have a little bit of a disadvantage going into that series. So I really like the way the playoffs are set up right now, and hopefully they keep it that way.
Now, who do you like this year in the playoffs? Who do you think is going to go the distance this year?
Oh man, it's a tough question. I think, the Giants have been one of those teams. It's just a magical season for them, and they seem to always be doing things the right way. Very humble group. Not a lot of flash. They play hard every day. They really seem to be extremely consistent in the way that they perform. Whether it's offensively, their defense is outstanding. They say in sports, defense wins championships, and they obviously proved that through 162 games and won the West and finally dethroning the Dodgers. So I'm going to go with the Giants just because of the experience that they have on that team and the magic that they've created so far this year. I think that I'm going to go with the Giants. I don't know. I mean, who knows what's going to shake out, but if I was a betting man, I think I'd go with the Giants.
That's going to bother some people in this area because there's still a lot of Gabe Kapler haters who are in this part of the country. The Philly fans who looked at Kapler. He's not one of us. And now he goes to the Giants and he's got the best record in baseball.
Yeah, tough break, I guess.
Ian, a couple more things I wanted to ask you about here. You're someone who, you were born in Arizona. You got drafted by the Diamondbacks, but you never got to actually play for the Diamondbacks. Is there a part of you that maybe looks back at your career and maybe wishes you actually had the opportunity?
No, I don't. I really think that everything lined up for me in Texas when I was drafted by them. I was drafted late. I was drafted in the 17th round, and to be able to make it to the big leagues and opening day roster in 2.5 years, the organization was, really had my best interest in mind. Obviously I had to perform, but they pushed me along very quickly for a 17th rounder, and to make an opening day roster, and not be a September call up and starting from, day one was a huge boost of confidence for me, and really never looked back. The funny thing about that is I was drafted by the Diamondbacks twice, and then I was drafted by the Rangers, and Buck Showalter was actually the manager of all three of those teams that I was drafted by, twice by the Diamondbacks and once by the Rangers. He was the big league manager for those three teams, or those three times I was drafted. So it's just a crazy coincidence. But playing for your hometown, I think is always cool. But I don't know if I'd want to go back and do it again. I like the way that it turned out.
Now, Ian, you get to play with some amazing talents in your career. You had guys like Josh Hamilton in Texas. The year you were with the Angels, you had Mike Trout out there. With the Red Sox, you had Mookie Betts. Years from now, when you're having to explain to your kids and your grandkids about how great some of these players that you played with, how do you explain it to them about guys like Hamilton and Trout and Betts?
I don't know how you have to. I don't know. That's a really good question. I mean, I played with Adrian Beltre. I played with Albert Pujols. I played with Miguel Cabrera, Fernando Tatis Jr. Manny Machado. I played with a lot of great players. Chris Sale. So it's just a different level. And when you get to the major leagues, the thing that separates players at the major league level from the minor league level is just the consistency, being able to do it consistently at a high level, day in and day out. Well, when you get to the Hall of Fame level with the players that we named, they're able to do it as consistently as everybody else, just at a different level. Just producing more and being able to play all aspects of the game. And it's really hard to describe. Trying to describe somebody like Josh Hamilton, I think is really difficult. And Mike Trout, guys that are just extremely gifted physically, it's just hard to describe. You got to talk about their BP and just the things that they do on the field. I mean, I can remember Josh Hamilton's first swing in batting practice. His first swing in batting practice every day, he's hitting the ball in the upper deck somewhere. It could be left field, center field, right field. It's all over the field. His first swing of the day, he's hitting the ball in the upper deck. Most guys, their first swing of the day is like a little ground ball in between second and first, trying to get loose a little bit. But not him. He was just built to create force and speed, and it was incredible to watch. That's a really good question, and I don't know how I would go about that.
Well, the reason I ask is because when I talk to people about some of these guys, I always tell people that, to me, Josh Hamilton is the closest thing in real life we have to Robert Redford's The Natural to me, because he was just he looks, everything he did was like he was born to play baseball. But when I look at guys like Mookie Betts and Fernando Tatis Jr. you mentioned, or someone like Mike Trout, those guys could have literally played any sport, and I think they would have been successful. But the fact they chose baseball and they're so great at baseball adds to another element to who they are.
I agree with you. I agree with what you said, yes. And like you said, Josh Hamilton was born to play baseball. He could have been a quarterback. He could have been, a tight end. And the guy was 6'4", 230 in his heaviest years, 220, 225, running like the wind. I mean, he scored from first on a double with ease. And when you say born to play baseball, that was something that always bothered me. I was always taught no one's born to play baseball. You got to earn it. You got to work for it. You gotta put in the hours of practice to get to that level and to be that good. But with a guy like Josh Hamilton or Mike Trout, it's, I think they literally were born to play baseball. I can, remember Josh. He honestly on the field couldn't tell you what he was doing or why he was doing it. It just all seemed to come together for him. Why he read, a little looping line drive over the second baseman's head to go first to third. He doesn't know why. He just has those instincts. Or why he threw, a 98 mile an hour, cutoff and relay throw perfectly to the cutoff guy to cut somebody out of home. He never overthrew the cutoff guy, but he had a tremendous arm. And most guys with tremendous arms, they wanted to show it off and, airmail everything. And he was sound. He was a sound player, but he didn't know why or how. He didn't practice being sound. He just had those instincts, and it was really impressive to play alongside him.
That's an incredible description. You know what? I don't think we can do anything more today. Yeah, that was a perfect description of Josh Hamilton. Ian Kinsler joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. It's Ultimate Fantasy League Baseball, professional fantasy sports, 30 teams, 26-man rosters, 40-man limit. It's like running your own baseball team. If anyone wants to get involved, they can email info@uflb@gmail.com. Whether you want to be an owner, a GM, a scout, or maybe you're yourself a former player and you want to get involved, info@uflb@gmail.com. And, of course, Ian Kinsler is involved, and these guys get to hit some financial reward with the NFT revenue. It is literally next-level fantasy sports, and Ian Kinsler is involved in that. Ian, before I let you go, if there was one element of the professional fantasy sports that we're talking about here that you want to tell people why they should be involved, there was one thing that you could point to, what would that be?
I think it would be just that it allows you to be as close. It just mimics the rules of baseball to a T. As far as guys going through waivers or, guys being released, trades, arbitration, all kinds of things that a normal fan might not think about, the day in and the day out, rules of baseball and what a general manager actually goes through. This is what this league provides. And scouting, just, a lot of people are pooling their money together as a team of people that are trying to conquer this and make a bid on a team, and winning the bid. And then, they'll have one guy doing the scouting or two guys doing the scouting and one guy doing the general manager stuff. And, one guy doing the day in and day out, filling the roster and the roster fills. So it's super intense. It's a lot of fun, and there's just a lot of different ways to attack it. So for me, it's just that it mimics Major League Baseball, as closely as possible. And that's kind of what drew me to it also.
And folks, you can also follow them on Twitter at the UFLB on Twitter. That's Ultimate Fantasy League Baseball. Ian Kinsler, 4-time Major League All-Star, two-time Gold Glove winner, and World Series champion, joined us today here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Ian, I appreciate you joining me on the show today and hope we can touch base again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Have a good day.